How will the recent rash of layoffs change the face of the workforce here in the U.S.? Let's ask James Sherk of the Heritage Foundation. James, first of all, women. At the end of this recession, when all's said and done, am I right in saying that the workforce will be split roughly 50-50, women and men?
It may not be quite 50-50, but it'll be a lot closer. About three-quarters of the layoffs, or the people who've lost their jobs, have been men. And that's because the industries that have been hardest hit have been industries traditionally dominated by men. Think construction, think manufacturing. There's quite a gender imbalance there, whereas the industries that haven't been doing as poorly, government or the health sector, education, are pretty evenly split. So it's the brunt has been falling more on men than on women in this recession.
I'm trying to get some understanding how this severe recession affects the workforce and how the workforce looks when you've come out of this severe downturn. How about minorities? Some would say that they were the last into the workforce and they will therefore be the first out. Is that accurate?
Well, what happens is the recession hurts workers without skills, irrespective of their gender or their skin color. So to the extent that you've got workers who are less skilled, and unfortunately there are many minority groups who you take a look at the inner city school system, have not been doing as well. Well, their skills are not as valuable to employers, and it hurts them.
James, is that accurate, that recessions hurt primarily people who are unskilled? This recession has clearly hurt the financial industry, the housing industry, not just construction, but the housing industry, housing brokers, real estate brokers. That's not an unskilled area.
I'm not saying that the job losses are only among the unskilled. The financial industry is the biggest and most obvious exception. But when it comes time for an employer to lay someone off, they're much more likely to lay off someone who has fewer skills and would be more easy to replace when the recession's over than they are to replace a highly skilled and highly productive employee. So, it's not a universal law, but it's the way that the numbers work on average.
All right, so this recession is going to hit men perhaps a bit more than women. It's going to hit minorities perhaps a bit more than the majority population. How about immigrants? There was lots of jobs for immigrants in the boom years. Are they the first out?
That's what the numbers have been showing so far. If you take a look at the construction sector, there's that's one of the sectors where you see a sizable portion of immigrants, and especially undocumented immigrants tend to go to that sector. And you've just had a demand for new housing dry up. You simply need to build a lot fewer houses while housing prices are dropping 20%. And so we've seen reductions in the levels of illegal immigration because of that.
Would you characterize the speed of change in the face of the American workforce? I always look, as an Englishman who's lived here for 35 years, I'm always astonished at the rate of change in America. Things happen real fast here as opposed to old-fashioned Europe and perhaps old-fashioned Asia. Am I right? I mean, are things really moving quickly in this recession to change the face of the American workforce?
Well, it's the face of the workforce. I mean, you're talking about hundreds of millions of individuals in the workforce, over 100 million. So it's not something that's going to change overnight. But each month, about 4 million Americans you find a new job, and about 4 million Americans lose their job. There's tremendous fluidity and movement in the labor market, and it's one of the reasons that America has created a lot more jobs than Europe has over the past generation.
Is that right? 4 million people a year lose their jobs and 4 million new jobs are created? Is that a year, did you say?
No, a month.
A month?
4 million a month.
4 million people walk away from a job or are fired or whatever, and 4 million other people come in and take those jobs or take another job. That's extraordinary. Wow.
No, exactly. That's why when you hear the numbers about 600,000 jobs being lost last month, that's not 600,000 jobs total. That's about 4.5 million Americans losing their job that month, and about another 3.94 million Americans finding new work. There's a tremendous growth in America, and it's a strength for this country.
That's astonishing. That is 50 million people a year either changing jobs or changing their employment status, basically. Ooh.
Exactly right.
That's extraordinary.
Now sometimes you have people changing 2 or 3 times within a year, so it's not necessarily 50 million different people. But tens of millions of new jobs are created and lost every year as the economy responds to changing conditions.
Astonishing stuff. James Sherk could talk about this all day. Thank you very much for joining us, sir. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
We have breaking news for you now.